you guys, but feel free to take 30 seconds and stretch a little bit if you want to stand up, like get the blood flowing. I know for me, yeah. You can help us if you need.
Don't you have class right now?
You can go. Hi everyone. Hello. So I'm an introvert actually, and I definitely prefer really small groups, and so for me to kind of like get up in front of 80 people, it's hard for me. But I'm here because I want to be more brave, and I want to be okay with being messy and imperfect. That's sort of part of what I'm working with. There you go. I know I like mislead com with all of this, so this is kind of saving grace. Yeah, so with that, I'd like to talk today about just a little bit about kind of who I am and my path into coaching, and then I want to talk about coaching, sort of why I do it, why it's important, what it is, and then I want to pull back the curtain and actually give you sort of a taste of the inside of like how I do it, and kind of explain multiple levels of what it means to me. At the risk of oversharing, I really feel like being able to explain part of my experiences and how they've shaped my worldview is a big part of understanding why I do what I do and why it's so important to me. So I'm just going to go for it. So here we go. And then I'm going to end with some invitations. So I was born and raised in Hong Kong. I lived there for 16 years. Mom's Chinese, my dad is a bunch of white stuff. He's kind of and in Hong Kong, you have three choices for your career. You can be a doctor, a lawyer, banker, or you're a failure. Can anybody relate to that? Sort of this very much a focus on just different things. Asians. And I was, truth be told, I was kind of an outsider when I was growing up. I have a mild stutter. I had really bad skin when I was growing up. And so I really didn't feel like I fit in that much. And so with that, plus sort of this focus on get good grades and go to good school and get a good job, I really poured myself into my academics. And this sort of thought that I had at the time was I need to achieve to feel worthy, to feel enough, sort of for love and respect and all these different things. And that drove a lot of my behavior. So I ended up getting into an Ivy League school. My parents are very happy. I had to sacrifice a lot in order to do that. That's a story for a different time if you want to chat happy hour. But then when I got to college, I said to myself, I'm going to take this time and let myself explore and not sacrifice things like growth in my social life. So I point this in the right way. I took a bunch of different classes. I took philosophy, I took sign language, I joined a fraternity, if you can believe that. And I also met one of my favorite professors, Mr. Middleman, who was the first person who really believed in me. And he taught a social entrepreneurship class. I really loved it. It was sort of a good mix of not just doing well in the world, but also doing good in the world. So he was sort of a huge support at the time. When it came to career, I sort of loved this idea of exploring. And with that high achieving potential, I went and I joined a consulting firm called Citrix. Some people have heard of them from like GoToMeeting products, but really their sort of core business is what's called server virtualization and application virtualization, which is sort of a fancy name. This is kind of the precursor to cloud computing. So on-premise cloud solutions that enabled employees from anywhere to access their data securely from anywhere in the world. So I was traveling 4 to 5 days out of the week. This picture here is from the movie Up in the Air. Lots of hotels, lots of plane flights, that whole gig. It was awesome in my 20s. And like most consultants, I also burned out a lot. And I worked very long hours. And so as I sort of tell these stories, I feel like life is a series of journeys. And so I have my journey in my career, I have my journey as an entrepreneur now, and I have my journey as a life partner, as a puppy dad, and hopefully also as a human dad someday. And I really believe at my core that the most important journey is the inner journey. So as I go through sort of the outside of what I did and how I lived my career, I also want to share with you what was happening on the inside, because I failed a lot and I've had a lot of setbacks, things like that. So I was working very long hours, and sort of this feeling here of telling yourself you can handle this, and putting up with an unholy situation. And I remember after feeling really, really run down, I went to my manager and I said, I need a break. And she said, Leland, we're understaffed and you're too valuable. And she wouldn't let me stop. And there's another thought that I have had my whole life, which is I can't let other people down. Always putting other people's needs before mine. And I just kept working harder because that's what I had learned to do for so long. So as the flames kept increasing, I started to get super tired, and after a whole bunch of travel, there was one time where I went to a friend's dinner party, and I was sitting down, and I get up for 2 seconds to grab something at the end of the table, and I completely lost consciousness. I blacked out, and I almost went into the soup if it weren't for my friend who kind of caught my collar, and the next thing I know, he's slapping my face on the ground, trying to wake me up, and I'm like, what the hell just happened? And he goes, Leland, I think that's your body telling you you need to slow down. That led me to take a 3-month leave of absence. And it was really hard to sort of take a break from my let's climb the career path, but it was exactly what I needed. And it's funny how sometimes when things come into our lives or things stop, new things open. And that's actually when I found the activity of skydiving. And I loved skydiving. That sort of led to like a 10-year path of me jumping out of airplanes. And the key thing here is if you notice on everyone's head, they're wearing the GoPro. And I was fascinated by this. This little device could enable us to record ourselves in flight, rewatch it for fun and for learning, and also share it with people that we love. And I was fascinated. And so I applied to GoPro, and I went to GoPro, and for the next 4 years in my next chapter, I spent on GoPro building cameras. I was a technical program manager. I was hired as the first camera firmware program manager. I was on the product development team, so I worked with product and design and engineering and QA to build cameras. This is us in the top left, just after China. We did an engineering build for, I think that's the Hero 3. And yeah, that's me with short hair, by the way, which I've had most of my life. I did a lot of jumping. I was the best beta tester ever. Got to use it on all sorts of trips and things like that. And I also went to Burning Man, and that is where I met my now wife out there in the dust. So I filmed a lot of stuff, and she has this ongoing joke that I'd always have a GoPro with me. I was a huge, huge believer in them. I still am. Unfortunately, though, it was a great ride. And part of it was I joined, and it was like a rocket ship. This is back in 2013. Literally every quarter was our highest revenue quarter ever. A year later, we went public in 2014, and it was like we could do no wrong. And then I saw us, leadership, make a bunch of really shitty decisions out of greed and out of wanting to think kind of short term, and everything came crashing down. You can look at the stock price there. We started around 36, 37, peaked around 86, and then within 18 months, we're in the toilet at about $8. So for me, I feel like I got to witness sort of a full life cycle of a company in very short time. The other piece is I got a chance to manage a team there, and I got to actually build out a team. I got promoted like among some peers, which is kind of hard, and I got to hire a bunch of people, learned a lot about that, made a lot of mistakes, but it was a very, very fulfilling experience. And one of the things that I realized, I'm going to pause as I love this one. I was still chasing titles and promotions and salary, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it was really all that I was focused on for a long time, sort of drive to achieve. And I started to really think more about these other pieces of life and what they can contribute to us as whole people. And so for my next jump in my career, my next jump in my career, I willingly took a $34,000 pay cut, and I went to a K-12 education technology company called Berkeley. On the left, this is us in a second grade classroom where we're actually watching teachers and students log into our platform. This is where I met KDG. We actually worked together there. Great mission, you guys, great mission. We were building products like single sign-on and rostering to enable teachers and students to access their learning data in one place. Clever is actually in 65% of all K-12 schools in America. So great product. It's actually free for schools and districts, which is awesome. And I was part of the founding core team of building out this new product called the Clever Library, which is a product that let teachers find new applications and try them out with one click. So all the magic's kind of on the back end. And And being in this role, I was sort of the head of partner engineering. I also had a team where my team was really a bunch of customer-facing engineers that were consulting for engineers at other companies like Pearson and Scholastic and Khan Academy, helping them to build API integrations with our platform. Really important work. I really didn't enjoy it. So great mission, but the actual day-to-day was not my favorite. And it was at this point where I experienced what I think a lot of people today would call imposter syndrome. This idea of, you're gonna find me out, I'm really not as capable as other people think, all my success is sort of luck. And I started to realize it really comes down to this feeling of not really being enough, not feeling enough in this role, especially when you stretch or like when you're promoted. This feeling of self-doubt is very real for me. So it was an interesting juxtaposition between a feeling of belonging with the mission, caring about education, and yet personally feeling like I wasn't belonging in my role. Kind of these weird things. And I also had not learned my lesson about burning out. So I worked super hard again, and I had to take it all on my back. And I ended up coming down with pneumonia. And I was homesick for 2 weeks with pneumonia, and I did a lot of fucking thinking, just like, what am I doing with myself? Just climbing this ladder really, really fast. Debbie was our head of people at the time, and she became a mentor to me. She has worked in industry for a long time. She worked at Mozilla and at Time Warner, and she sort of became a mentor for me. She's also a coach for 30 years. And she helped me really think through what I was doing and where I was going. And I like to describe her, like if I've talked to you before, she's a combination between Mary Poppins and Yoda. Okay, so she has like the umbrella, and she's all like love and joy and happiness. And she also has this very deep, wise presence. And she really helped me through a lot. And one of the things she said was, Leland, think through your past jobs about what you really loved. And so I came up with this diagram. I've had a lot of experience in technology. I spent almost a decade in program management, and these last two places, both the GoPro and Clever, I get a chance to manage people. And I'm good at these bottom two, but for me, a really, really great day was always helping my team grow or do some kind of presentation that was bigger, helping them to succeed. Those are always what I really felt was like the best parts of my day. I've actually redone this since Haas, by the way, and now it looks like this. So now we have business, and my worldview sees people as an integral part of everything that we do. The other thing she said to me was, Leland, I want you to think about redefining success for yourself, what that means. So this concept of an inner scorecard. So I started to write down things I love. All right, I love helping other people grow and succeed. I like talking about real shit. I like variety and novelty in my life and trying to look at patterns across the lanes. I want to leverage my unique skills, and I'm fascinated by learning and growth. And I was able to actually map these to my core values: service, connection, adventure, flow. So I brought this back to Debbie and I said, look, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I want to do next. And she said, you should go and check out coaching, professional coaching. And I said, sports coaching, what does that even mean? She's like, no, there's this thing called coaching, and you should go try it. So I did, and I took one class, and it hooked me. And I can tell you more about that story later, but that's when I decided to start my own business. So I've been running my own business now for about 2.5 years. I coach, I teach, and I facilitate. I'd like to focus today on the coaching piece of it. Let's do a little bit of a transition, talk about coaching. Put it down, please. So now we'll talk. Oh, hello. Okay, so let's talk about coaching. And I guess my flavor of coaching could be like leadership coaching, executive coaching. There's sort of this ongoing joke that all coaching is really life coaching if you take a holistic approach, right? Which I sort of always do. So why coaching? I believe that people really want change. And I feel like here in this room, y'all are leaders, not just like leaders by title, but leaders in terms of wanting something different for your life. And sometimes people want more of something, more impact, more fulfillment, more peace of mind. Sometimes they want less stress, less anxiety, less self-doubt. Part of what I'm learning is that we have a very hard time seeing ourselves. It's sort of like a fish in water. We have a hard time actually looking at ourselves. And so being able to have someone hold up a mirror and kind of show you, here's what I'm hearing, here's what I'm seeing is very, very valuable. There's a book by Marshall Goldsmith called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Who's heard of it? Who's read it? And the core concept is that when you go from one phase of growth to the next, often the skills and behaviors that you had and sort of got you where you are not what you need to the next one. As an example, the transition from IC to management, right? How many times do we promote a badass IC just to find out that it's a completely different skill set that you need? So this concept of like, we can't just keep relying on the things we have been to keep moving forward. There's a reassessment of what we need and to keep growing. So I love this stuff. So what is coaching? Coaching is about achieving goals, right? There's a layer of getting from A to B. But I think underneath that, there is the transformation of who you're becoming when you reach those goals. I like to say coaching is accelerating meaningful change through powerful relationships. How do we do that? Through transformative conversations, by empowering people to find their own answers, not by giving answers, and by supporting them along the way. So I'll give you some examples. It's kind of like abstract. I looked through the last 18 months of my clients and I said, why did they come to me to work? Most of them are leaders and managers, mostly in tech. And they want to learn how to be better at delegating, giving tough feedback, managing, motivating, cross-team alignment. Balance is a big one. And often changing careers. I want to be more fulfilled, I want to be more effective. I also have started to work with some founders and some CEOs, which is crazy because I've never been a startup CEO. On things like, how do we raise money? How do we work with our team? How do we do communication with our people? How do we build our team culture when we transition from normal to COVID? How do we have tough conversations? And there's sort of this third pillar here that's been really interesting for me. Leland, I have a big goal. Help me to get there. I think I've helped 2 people now leave the corporate world to start their own business. One's an architect and one is a designer kind of type person. Wanting to launch an idea. There was an engineer last year who said, she's from Vietnam. I want to build a platform to raise money to send underprivileged kids in Vietnam to school. We spent 6 months together. She raised money for 45 kids to go to school for 1 year, all expenses paid. There's someone who I helped to write a book. I mean, people have big goals and we work on it and we figure shit out. All these things that I just mentioned, these are all sort of, what I would call the outer game. This is what you see on the outside. And you already know this, right? But like, what it takes to do things that are amazing, like you've all done, is all about what's happening on the inside. So self-awareness, understanding your own beliefs. How do you manage anxiety and stress? How do you make sure you have time for yourself? How do you focus on one thing at a time or multitask? How do you try to do hard things? Everything, I think, comes from the way that we see the world, which then drives our choices, which then drives our actions, and then you see the results at the end. So we focus a lot on that sort of inner game piece, and that's what gets sort of really exciting for me. Okay, power of the relationship. I think this is what coaching is all about. This is the difference between just watching TED Talks by yourself, which I do, and things like that. The relationship of coaching is where the magic is. It's a way of being with someone in a way that's intentional. So you can actually design what it's like to work with your, you can't choose your boss or your parents, but you can choose how to work with a coach that's going to serve you the best. So as an example, as a baseline, you might expect things like confidentiality, respect, honesty, empathy, things like that. But what if you could also design in things like encouraging curiosity and experimentation without judgment, being able to have a space where you can be challenged and be pushed to be uncomfortable, being able to process a full range. I always tell my clients, you don't have to show up, rah, rah, let's go, positive. There's space for all of you. If you're pissed off, angry, sad, or frustrated, you can bring it here and we can talk about it. Taking risks, being pushed to fail and learn from it. And assuming people are not weak and need to be fixed is a big pillar of my approach. People are naturally resourceful and whole inside. It's not about fixing people. And finally, that every situation has possibilities. And no matter what happens to you, you always have a chance to respond. Easier said than done, right? But these are sort of examples of core tenets of being able to design a relationship with someone that has these attributes in it. I know I'm doing a lot of talking, we're doing great. We're almost there. So, I know what you're thinking. One day I will learn how to use this thing. Who the hell are you to coach CEOs? And I ask myself this all the time. I've never been a C-level anything. I've never been a VP of anything. And the truth is, the way that I'm finding this is working is that it's not my job to have answers. They're not paying a mentor or a consultant that's done this for 30 years that says, here's what I did, here's what you should do. I don't give people answers. What I do is I draw out people's answers from within them. They're often crowded out by fears and self-limiting beliefs. So what I like to say, my job is to give people insights, is to create that space for insights to happen. Because if you're in this kind of relationship, amazing fucking things happen when you feel like you can be fully present with someone and talk about some hard things. People have their own insights that are willing to take their own action. Okay, so getting to the heart of it. If I could really distill it down for what coaching really is, there are 3 elements. Number 1, it's about self-discovery. Who are you right now? What are the stories and beliefs that are in your head that have helped you and that are holding you back? Number 2, who do you want to be? And number 3, what will you commit to? Just notice there's a being and a doing here. Our life is so full of so much doing and taking action and goals that the being is a huge part of it. When I think about what I do specifically, I wear a bunch of different hats. I'm a detective, mirror, sometimes I'm a challenger, call people on the bullshit, people love that. Scientist, champion, thought partner, and mostly a co-creator. Figure out how to be a creator in your life and have some intentionality over what you want to make. It's possible. I feel like I try to be a product of that with all the people that have supported me. When life sort of says, this is how it is, I try to instill a sense of how do we actually make this something that's helpful. Almost there. So what does it actually look like to be in a coaching engagement? I typically work with people from 3 to 6 months at a time. We have calls every 2 weeks. Calls are about an hour long. There's action in between every session. There's always something to be done. And throughout the whole thing, I ask my clients to journal at least half an hour a week. I provide them worksheets for introspection, articles from all sorts of resources, and I give them email and text support between sessions. I like to think of myself as part of their inner circle, and that's something that's very empowering for me and them. I also have some add-ons. So I built a 360 leadership assessment where I'll interview 10 to 12 people on their board and staff, and I'll create sort of like an anonymized report about here's what people are saying about your impact. Right? Intention, what we intend, and the impact that you can control. I like taking people out in nature. I love this. I mean, I've been hiking now for like a few years with their dog, and it's great to take people out of their usual environment and be in nature. A lot of innovation, kind of creativity can come along. And skydiving, because I had to integrate that shit so much. I think I've taken 4 clients now, and usually the topics are around being able to face fear and like letting go. And so we'll coach before the jump and after the jump. And they're still alive, so that's good. I also use an online system to support the work. So this is a web-based SaaS tool where we can centrally track all of our action items. We can create metrics together, like how many hours a day you work, how much water you drink, how many times we're vulnerable, whatever. And this is from sort of a real client that I've scrubbed. Real action items, so everything is sort of stored in one place. This is really helpful. I get to use AI and shit like that to help me out with my work so that I can focus on the conversations. Okay, we're almost there. So when I sort of distill down what I actually do, number 1, I see people better so they can better see themselves. Number 2, I challenge their thinking so they can learn to have more choice in their lives. And number 3, as corny as it sounds, I believe in people so they can learn to believe more in themselves. I know that because there are a lot of people that have believed and still believe in me, and it means the world to have people that are in your corner. I love this one. You and where you want to be. Willingness to believe in yourself. God, it's so just that. Fucking Lizzie Mullen is great. Okay, last slide. So I want to end with some invitations for you guys. You can do them or not, your choice. First, a few reflections. Where might you be living someone else's life? I should, I need to, I have to are usually good prompts. And B, what might be on your inner scorecard? How do you want to redefine success and not just kind of follow all the values that are around you? Number 2, gratitude. To send a thank you letter to someone who supported you. It's a small thing that makes a big difference. And finally, a coaching session. So for those of you that have talked to me here, I'm here at Haas partially to make meaningful friendships. I will not coach any of you long term. I won't, because I want to be friends and not in this like coach-client relationship. If you want to coach, I have a list of people that I love that I'm happy to refer you to. However, the only way to really understand what coaching is to experience what it's like. And if you want to, I'm willing to offer any of you one-time 90-minute deep dive coaching session. Your topic, you pick it. I will bring my A game and we'll go. Okay? It's up to you if you count to me. And finally, a request, because I like the idea of kind of putting something out there in the universe and seeing what happens. I'm a space nerd. I would love to coach someone at SpaceX or NASA or somebody at the United Nations. These are sort of my big dreams. So I'm just going to put that out there, and if one day something happens and you think of me, that'd be great. And that's all I have. Thank you.
That was so good.
Yeah.